we are going to talk SEC officiating. If you guys remember last week, there was a lot of questionable officiating when Tennessee played Georgia. A lot. The most notable were two plays. The Ricky Gibson face mask that wasn't a face mask when a player's helmet came off, and the substitution penalty that is never, ever, ever called. That fueled a conspiracy of trying to get the most SEC teams into a playoff. I was wrong on that, guys. There's no conspiracy. SEC officiating is just bad, and it's inconsistent, and the stuff they do makes no sense. Over the weekend, I don't know if you guys saw, but Alabama, Jalen Milroe, Alabama was trailing 24-3, and he threw a 35-yard touchdown pass to Ryan Williams. I mean, it was a heck of a throw, a beautiful throw that Ryan Williams caught in the end zone. And it was waved off by an illegal touching penalty by a receiver like 5 yards down the line that no one was even looking at. It was just an absolutely horrible, horrible call. And yes, Alabama lost, and everybody was happy about that, but they have been a fourth quarter team, and they have been a comeback team in the past. So to have that touchdown waved off was quite honestly a really, really bad look, because you don't know what could have happened after that. We're talking about a really, really, really good fourth quarter football program, and I'm not saying they would have won, but could they have turned it around and gotten back into the playoff and gotten back into that game? Yes, you guys forget this. When that touchdown was waved off, it was let's see, it was early in the fourth quarter. It was a fourth down at the Oklahoma 36, and it was just a ridiculous penalty to call. It was a total missed one. I'm not going to play it just because of copyright issues, but it was really, really ugly. Also, later that night, and this is where the SEC conspiracy did come in, when Texas A&M was losing to Auburn, a phantom offensive pass interference was called against Auburn in one of the overtimes that could have cost them the game too. It was a ridiculous call. There was no pick set. It was a crossing route. It was very clear, and they made the call. That one looked like it because it looked like they wanted to have Texas A&M with 2 losses. You know, let me steelman real quick the conspiracy side, because I don't believe it anymore. The conspiracy side could have been that the SEC may see Alabama as a chance to get into the playoff anyway, and it's more important for them to maximize their number of bowl teams, at which point they would want to work to get Oklahoma into a bowl. Oklahoma could get into a bowl. Auburn, they're not giving any chance to get to a bowl because Auburn had to play Texas A&M, would have had to beat them, and has to beat Alabama this week. So they're writing that one off. So they would, if their incentive was to rig games, it would be in favor of Oklahoma and Texas A&M, because do you value more bowl teams or do you value more playoff teams? Who knows? I don't think it's that complex, guys. I think officials are just bad. I think they're just really bad, and we just see it more because of betting. Stephen Berryman asked a good question. I want to share it real quick, where he says, Caleb, do you think Greg Sankey and the SEC will finally start addressing the bad officiating and start holding them accountable? Numerous game outcomes could have changed by some bad calls made in them. Stephen, yes, that is true, but I don't think they're ever going to hold officials accountable, and here's why. These guys aren't full-time. To be fair to the officials, they don't have all week to study all of the film of teams. Here's what you do when you're a ref, guys, if you've ever been one. You don't react to things that are called just like, oh, I see it, I call it. That's not how officiating is. You look at teams and players' tendencies, and you're on the lookout for those things more than others because you know what could happen. That's the biggest way officiating changes. And how are they supposed to do that in an accurate way if they don't have a full week to study the teams they're going to be officiating? You see, this is the big problem here. They need to be able to study the teams they're going to be officiating, and they need to be able to study them 40 hours a week and have nothing else get in their way. And not being able to do that is causing a huge problem. Again, you guys, remember the replacement refs with the NFL in 2012? You think officiating is bad now? Wait till they replace them. It gets worse. But it's very obvious. Too many people gamble for this to be acceptable. I think that something does have to be done. I think I'm not for holding the officials accountable. They're overworked, they're underpaid, and they need to be full-time. I'm holding the SEC accountable. I'm holding the league offices accountable. Okay? The league office has mishandled this grossly, and as gambling continues to take over sports, it's only going to get uglier, guys. Officiating is just, it's really, really, really bad. I don't think, and here's what I would do. Make them full-time employees. It can't be that much more. And then the head official has to call a press conference at the end of every game. They have to do a post-game press conference the way a coach has to do a post-game press conference if he wins or loses. Every official has to do a post-game press conference, okay? And they have to answer any questionable calls that were made, and they have to explain it. All right? That's that. Now, look, calls are missed. Sometimes calls get missed. I've seen missed calls when Tennessee's played that I don't think were so blatant to where I haven't called it out. There have been some misholdings. If you guys remember the 2006 LSU game-winning drive, where Jamarcus Russell threw a touchdown pass to beat Tennessee. Earlier on that drive on the fourth down, he did not on the fourth down, but earlier on that drive, he did fumble. Tennessee recovered. They called him down on the fumble, but it wasn't that obvious, so you couldn't really get mad at that. But truth be told, the officiating has been horrible and more blatant with the calls missed in recent games, and they're going to have to figure this out. Now, Justin Lefevre says, make gambling illegal, and it'll get fixed really quick. Justin, I hate to tell you this, but I think gambling is the only thing holding these guys accountable right now. It's much more under the microscope because of those issues. So I think more than anything, I don't think gambling is the problem. I think officials are overworked, underpaid, don't have the time to study things. And also, more importantly, as Jimmy Hyams reported to us one time, many of the SEC officials, many of the best ones are just getting poached. Guys are just getting poached. And I don't know how you fix that issue, okay? Because once they are good in the SEC, they end up getting hired probably by the NFL or somebody like that, all right? There are long-term SEC officials who have been beloved in the past. I mean, we're talking everybody knows Steve Shaw. Everybody knows Steve Shaw. I mean, he's literally famous for being a great official, okay? So there are good officials, and you can get known for being a good official. But Ashley Allen says, if found by the SEC it was a dirty call, they should be fined, agreeing with me that it should be a full-time job, officiating. And you're right, Ashley. The SEC is a multi-million-dollar conference, should be making this change. It's so obvious. I totally agree. And I don't understand why they haven't done that. I could maybe get with the fine. I can't say fine because of a bad call, even if they're full-time, because that's like finding a coach for a bad play call. I wouldn't do that, but you'd have to go a little bit further than that. But maybe there is a way to do it where the fines are important. Before we close out talking about this, last look brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn.
To visit cctis.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and Eye Care Optical at cctis.com. Simply the best.
All right, back to it. Yes, welcome back to Off the Hook Sports. We're talking about officiating and SEC officiating. Guys, I also have to say this. The SEC officials look less agenda-driven than other conferences. Go and watch other conferences. It becomes much more clear on the conspiracies to help those conferences. I think with the SEC, the officiating is just bad, and it's more under the microscope because it's the SEC. It just means more. Gambling, the fan base, everybody's paying attention to it. Justin brings up a point. What if we start making penalties reviewable? Well, some of them are. The non-judgment ones are. It's the judgments that are not reviewable. I don't know how I feel about that. I understand why people say it, but it's like, I do get the point where they're like, every call is a judgment call. True. I don't think fouls are reviewable in the NBA, though. That would be a new twist if someone started doing that. There was a debate about it. The other one, Stephen Berryman asked Caleb, should replay officials be allowed to be able to point it out to them and help them reverse their bad calls? It's hard to do that in the middle of the moment, but that's not a bad idea either. I don't know how you fix judgment calls and foul calls. I don't. I think you open up a lot of can of worms for something like that, guys. Just got to be honest with you. You open up a lot of can of worms. So I think the issues are a lot more deep-seated than we think. I think the truth of the matter is you just got to pay these guys, but I don't think they're going to. Guys, where are the consequences for this? Honestly, where are the consequences? Who's going to hold them accountable? Gamblers who lose money betting on every SEC game every week? People are still going to watch. People are still going to bet. It's not going to change. What incentive does the SEC have to hire full-time officials, or does any conference have to hire the best officials possible and let them focus solely on the game? They don't. And until they do, and I don't know how you get them that incentive. You guys throw some suggestions out, okay? Because I'm not, but truth be told, I really don't think there's any way that I don't really think there's any way you can fix this issue. I hate to say that. So we'll see how it goes, but I just think that the poor officiating is not going anywhere soon.